Guess we're all seated already. So, salam sejahtera, and a very good morning to each and every one of you. My name is Vishal J. Singh, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for today. On behalf of the organizers here at Tuban Architect Malaysia, of course, it is my honor to welcome each and every one of you for today's seminar. Now, without wasting time, let's get straight into the meat of the day. So, I'm going to read to you some protocols in regards to being here. The following, If you need to evacuate the building for any reason, there are, of course, exits at the back of the hall and towards my right. Now, if you need to go to the gents, please, or ladies, please do so as quietly as possible and follow the exit signages and obey all instructions if you need to. If, of course, there is a fire, then do obey the instructions by the fire warden and to remember, avoid using the lifts. The second rule is very, very important, okay? Kindly switch off all your phones. Either have them on silent or vibrate, but we advise you to switch them all off so that we can fully engage with today's interesting talk and its even more interesting speaker, the multi-competition winner that we're going to present to you later. Now, of course, face masks are still mandatory, so we recommend that you wear them all the time. If you want to practice social distancing, that's up to you, but please make sure that your masks are on all the time. If you are suddenly unwell, we kindly advise you to dismiss yourself and not to attend today's event as a courtesy to other participants. If you want to bring anything into the hall, you can only bring hot drinks or hot cooked food, packed food. It will be served at the seminar, not here, sorry, and we will not serve an open buffet at this event. So we will advise you on the makan arrangements later. Thank you so much. Now, we would like to again take this opportunity to thank today's sponsor, Pentens, for sponsoring today's seminar. Now, at this point, I'd like to call upon our sponsor, Mr. Frederick Yap, who is the Assistant Specification Development Manager, onto the stage to present his product talk. Sir, could you please come onto the stage? Let's give him a round of applause.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frederick, representative from Pentens Waterproofing. Okay, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Pam for giving us an opportunity to have a short presentation in this morning. So for today, right, I would like to share the waterproofing with cavity drainage system by Pentens. Okay, the content for today will have a little introduction of our organization and the type of waterproofing, and lastly, our isodrain drainage system. Okay, just a little bit about us. Our company established in 1989 as a manufacturer of construction chemical, and we have expanded our network throughout the countries as per shown, such as Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Myanmar, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, and so on. So currently we have 2 regional technical support centers, which located in Malaysia and Taiwan. And the services that we'll provide, which is the design specification, which we will liaise with architects and engineers to study for the consultants' drawing to design a suitable waterproofing system to consultants, and technical supports to resolve all the waterproofing issue, as well as during the execution of application, which if, let's say, if there are any issue regarding the waterproofing application occur at site, so our representative from Pentens will attend and assist to resolve all the issue. The type of waterproofing. Waterproofing defined in 3 types, which is the type A, the barrier protection system, which also we know it as the tank protection system. Usually this will be applied internally, sandwich, or externally to masonry concrete. Okay. For type B waterproofing, which is the integral waterproofing system, which also known as the waterproofing admixture. And for type C waterproofing, right, which I would like to emphasize with in this type C waterproofing, which is the drainage cavity system, which this system will divert the water out to the designated area. For cavity drainage system, right? The cavity system that I would like to share with you today would be for the foundation wall. As we know, for foundation wall, right, the waterproofing for foundation wall is very important to prevent water penetration. And the foundation wall that currently we have will be the CBP wall, diaphragm wall, or the most common that we can see would be the RC wall. So for today, we are going to look into the cavity drainage system for RC foundation wall. Okay, I would like to present you the IsoDrain Eco 10G system, which is the 10 mm dimple height cavity drainage system by Pantance. So this membrane actually will be mounted on the exterior wall, which is on the back field side with the mounting washer, as you can see on this visual. It will be mounted using the mounting washer and steel nail. Then followed by the finishing strip. And then this subsoil drain pipe will be placed over to channel out the water. And this membrane cavity, the 10 mm cavity, will allow the water to drain out from the substrate pipe. So for this membrane came over with the laminated geotextile, which this geotextile function is to filter out the sediments during backfill and to prevent the obstruction of the void space around the dimple, as this cavity works as a path to divert the water. So of course, before backfilling, hard core will be placed over the subsoil drain pipe, and then followed by the backfilling. Okay, the advantage of this membrane system, right, is this membrane is actually a lightweight. It only weighs about 750 grams per meter square, which this will ease on the installation, as for this membrane it requires a very minimal preparation, and this membrane itself has a high drainage capacity of 3.5 liter per meter square, and for the system itself, this membrane, they have a great compressive strength of 400 kilonewton per meter square. The meaning of this 400 kilonewton per meter square will be like this membrane is not easily get damaged. Okay, the second system that I would like to share with you is the IsoDrain 8M, which is the 8 mm dimple height cavity drainage for internal wall application. Okay. For this application is much more similar like the previous, the IsoDrain 10G, just that the fixing will be slightly different only. So this fixing will be using the IsoFix parachute plug, and followed by the special design finishing strip that allow the air circulation between the wall and the membrane itself. So whenever there's a water seepage through the wall, this cavity space formed by the membrane itself will allow the water to flow to the scupper drain. And the membrane is laminated with a layer of fiber mesh, which allows the direct architectural finish on the membrane itself. So this will be something like this on the finishing. So now we look into the section view for this membrane system. Okay, whenever there's a crack occurs, right, water tends to migrate through the cracks area. And with this IsoDrain 8M system, which is the 8 mm cavity space, as you can see from the visual over here. So whenever there's a migration of water through all this crack area, the water will be diverted out through this scupper drain. The advantages of this system itself, right, is this membrane is also a lightweight system. So this membrane is slightly lighter than the previous isodrain 10G, which weighs only 650 grams per meter square. And is able to apply on the negative side. Of course, this will be required this scalper drain. And this membrane itself have a high compressive strength of 150 kilonewton per meter square. And this system itself ensures the consistent of air circulation between the wall without affecting the architectural finish. And it have a good adhesion to the plaster finish as well. So after the installation of this membrane, you can straight away have the plaster finish or your architectural finish on top of the membrane itself. Okay, this is the two major systems that I would like to share with all of you for today. I sincerely appreciate for your attention, and please do not hesitate to visit us or contact us if let's say you have any question regarding this system. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick Yap, for that very detailed presentation. And now the moment we've all been waiting for. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our speaker of the day. But before I formally invite him on stage, let me just give you a little bit of a bio as to who he is, for those of you who surprisingly don't know who he is. Thank you very much. I'm distracted by the glitterati, sorry. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker, architect Qhawarizmi Norhisham. And he is an architect practicing in the tech hotbed of Malaysia, Cyberjaya. He was trained in architecture at University of Technology Mara, UiTM, and had additional academic experience in urban design at University of Technology, Sydney, in Australia, the AEDES Metropolitan Laboratory in Berlin, the Politecnico in Milano, in, of course, Italy. Runs multiple practices as the principal of Qhawarizmi Architect, who is also the director of Practica Architects in Berhad and a partner of a research think tank, Manifesto of Design and Research in Architecture, MDRXA. And at the same time, he is also the COO of Citivius, a digital agency tech startup that operates within the blockchain, NFT, and Metaverse space. In his academic career, he has lectured for a collective 8 years in various learning institutions. And currently, the Malaysian representative in Arc Asia Committee on Young Architects, ACYA, a recipient of Khazanah Design Residency, Pam Chan Sawala Award, and Pam Johnson Swiss Scholarship Award, among others. So I think I'll stop here, because otherwise if I continue with these credentials, we'll be here all day. And a little bit more on what he'll be speaking, and I would like to formally invite. Now, of course, today we'll be discussing about the Metaverse. And of course, this word has been thrown around a lot in tech echo chambers dominating our recent news headlines. So we're going to get one of the pioneers in the country to explain what the Metaverse is. So without further ado, I'd like to call upon Architect Qhawarizmi to come on stage and give us his presentation. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Vishal. So, first of all, disclaimer. I can't talk about the non-fungible terraces, which is our winning entry for Simon Derby Concept Home 2030 competition. So if you're expecting those material, it's not going to be presented today, because we have sort of, in short, NDA for a year at least. So maybe in 6-7 months time, we can have a session about that. While waiting for the slide to open, another disclaimer, I'm not a blockchain or metaverse expert. Just treat me as a fellow architect. Try to share some of the learnings that we did in the past six months, I think. So this is, just between us sharing, hopefully casually. Okay, so the expectation should be calibrated to the title of the sharing, which is Metaverse for Architects 101. So really it's going to be basic, because I see some of the advanced Metaverse players in the attendance today. So be wary of that. Okay, so another disclaimer, there's a lot of numbers going to be thrown around, big numbers, but at the end of the day, it's not an investment advice or endorsement, even though brands will be thrown around, companies, etc. None of them is a testament of their credibility or what they call it, so-called, just treat it as information and not advice. Okay. Okay. So I think it's a bit too bright. Do we mind to set this get one light? But it's okay. So early on my father's Windows 95, this is one of the earliest engagement of me in the digital spatial fabricated world, which is Doom 2. It's a, looking back, it's a fairly gore game of killing aliens in a base in Mars, basically. And then basically the idea behind that, you grew older, you actually learn that it is actually a very smart game which apply a binary spatial generation. Actually, the game is not designed in 3D. It's all 2D. But the way that they fabricate each plane to mimic perspective, for some reason, make the game very immersive. I mean, this is the era where Mario are around, so 2D scroll end-to-end game are, popular. But at the same time, Doom really opened up the dimensions to X, Y, and Z. It's fairly complex game, and it runs very smoothly. So that is very rare, considering the hardware capacity, the hardware, the graphic compute unit at that time. But if you have the chance to play the original one, I think it's free right now in simulators, or I'm not so sure, but I think you can get a free copy of it if you want to try. It gives you with the score, the audio, the score meaning audio, is fairly immersive game. This is some of the screenshots of things that could. It is also one of the earliest first-person shooter, if you're familiar with game terms around. So I think it is important to pay homage to video games because Metaverse is actually literally that plus additional features. Okay, so pandemic happened. Obviously, we are a byproduct of that. We're wearing masks, taking safety precautions, and this is where it truly accelerates. Metaverse is really as simple as any digital experience. If you want to define even Instagram or Twitter as Metaverse, actually you can. Basically, your version or what they call it, a substitution or another version of you in Instagram, if you live a double life, for example, is your Metaverse. And then your real life, in real life, IRL, is totally different personality, totally different outlook, totally different behavior. That is your personal life. So actually, we've been living in Metaverse for quite some time, and the idea also not that new. But since it's been re-emerged per se, it is because of the upcoming technologies that is coming, in this near future. Obviously, we have heard of the word VR before, AR before, but the thing is, the prowess of the hardware are not good enough at that time. You need a very high definition screen to be, so close up to it for you to not differentiate the pixel. So to push that very close, dense, pixelated screen, you need a robust graphic computing unit. So again, it's all interrelated to the progress of hardware. So even though Metaverse itself is not, like something that you can hold, it's fairly digital. It's software. It is a software-based experience, but it's fairly interrelated to hardware. Okay. So obviously, this is Mark Zuckerberg's Meta's avatars. And as I mentioned, in this world, you can be anyone. You can recreate yourself. I mean, this is not new. Every time you make a social media profile, you are again redefining yourself based on the subset. I mean, they will ask your gender, you will ask your date of birth, all those basic parameters. So in a way, even though you are more than just that, just numbers or just the interest that is listed in social media, you kind of box into those parameters. Same goes to these avatars. You might have more quirks in your facial features, but you are limited to skin color, maybe hair, eyebrow, eyelids, lips, etc. So this is literally what we've been living for years. So suddenly, the reason why it became big because of the technology has somehow emerged and come together. Actually, the most important thing that actually differentiate from now and the metaverse of the past is actually creation of value chain. That's all, which we're going to go after this. So I think the bold step that Facebook took to rebrand themselves, or rather have a parent company or a group company on top of Facebook that is called Meta, is really a testament of money, corporate money coming in a big way. So if you look at it, a lot of people are working on this, but definitely Meta is something that going to map everything out and sort of become a directory in a way Facebook has done for a lot of businesses today. So if you think Metaverse like a website, okay, or a Facebook page, okay, Meta will be sort of like the platform or sort of like the Milky Way, and the Metaverse will be the nations, planets, entities, stars that is populating the Milky Way. So even though you haven't seen actual any metaverse from Meta, I mean they haven't launched it in a big way, a viable product. But at the end of the day, people know that because of their prowess, they will be sort of like the at least the size of a Milky Way lah, or even more. Not so sure. Okay, so there's a lot of speculation. How many investment or capital that will be spent on developing these technologies. Obviously, this money is being thrown around just to, give some positive, reaction. But again, new technologies such as metaverse, electric vehicle need that kind of optimism. Okay, even though at the end of the day it might come to fruition, it might come to 50 billion, or it might be more. It is important for us to somehow give an idea and opportunity to grow. I think 50 billion is fairly modest. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Microsoft want to acquire a gaming studio for 68 billion USD. So that's not a ridiculous number to be honest. Okay, so market size, as I mentioned, a lot of companies are working on this. So there's a lot of corporate support on that on a global scale. Obviously, a lot of extension of their services will somehow extend to 3D. So if you look at all the Web 2 service providers, Web 2 means it's not connected to any blockchain. So if you look at all those Web 2 services, such as Gmail and for example Valve, a gaming company, or even Meta, a social media company. So the idea was really to have all those 2D experience and brought it over to 3D. So if you have those, for example, Grab app, for example, or even a Maybank to you, for example, you have a lot of tab. You have layers and layers upon layers of settings. For example, maybe your withdrawal limit, or maybe your standing order hidden somewhere inside the website, right? So in the future, it will be all 3D. You will have a digital avatar, which is going to be either chatbot or manned by a real person, and you can ask directly what you want without zipping through the list in your 2D website. So if you want to think about an extension of whatever you have, okay, it could be somehow a little bit more intuitive, meaning when you go into a digital bank, instead of Maybank to you, let's say Maybank, again, not endorsing Maybank, if you go into a digital 3D Maybank, maybe Maybank in the future doesn't have to build a physical branch anymore. You go in, and then basically you can just go straight to maybe mortgage, hire purchase, account problems, and then you can just deal with that. And then they can replicate that and serve infinite number of customers. Okay, so JP Morgan projected Metaverse will be a 1 trillion industry, but again, speculation. And there's a lot of money coming in from the public as well. So 54 billion are spent on virtual goods. Okay, almost double from digital music, from record labels. And then basically a game, for example, Candy Crush, I think fairly popular in yesteryears, made 70 to 80 million in with 270 million users. Of course, it is a free-to-play game with additional add-ons or what they call it, microtransaction. But at the same month, Axie Infinity, which is a blockchain game, which is a metaverse game on blockchain. And basically, the idea was really to see the creation of value with the numbers of users of only 2 million. They can make almost the same revenue for the same period of time. So if you look at it, it's really, as I mentioned, if you want to rethink, okay, I think I've seen this before, like the virtual reality showroom where you wear the goggles and you see the showroom. I'm sure as an architect, you have seen that past 10 years maybe. Yes, it is part and parcel a progression from that, but eventually the difference that make what I call Metaverse 2.0 is really creation of value. And you will see how blockchain is actually enabling those value creation. Another projection, they say that you're going to be 8 to 13 trillion opportunity. But again, how do we encapsulate the barriers or sort of like the boundaries, or where is the Web 2, as I mentioned, 2D, your Maybank to You app, and it's fairly blurred. So how do they define the actual metaverse market still at large? Okay, so as I mentioned, I did talk about games. Okay, I mentioned Doom, Candy Crush, Axie Infinity, but it is actually a free world for everyone to actually do anything, to be honest. So if you look at Microsoft Mesh, their solution is more productivity oriented, but again, as I mentioned, it is an extension of their existing products. They try to push this as an extension of Microsoft Teams. So if you look at it, again, it's nothing new. I would say Metaverse is about, collation of technologies, just like iPhone. I mean, you have phone, you have camera, you have a computer separately. But if you combine it together, you get iPhone or smartphone per se. So the same goes to Metaverse. Is actually where all this technology collide. It's not a new technology of each. It's not like invention of suddenly we reinvent the wheel or something like that. It's an emergence of technology. So if you're familiar with collaborative tools like Miro, for example, that is a 3D version of Miro. And if you're familiar with work scheduling, or like Trello, or another website for you to manage your office, maybe, is again a combination of that. And of course, the avatars is just for you to get that 3D presence. So it starts fairly, long time ago. And of course, people are trying to get themselves onto the screen for the longest time. It's actually start with a PhD student looking at the oscillation of wave. The idea was really to think, can human sort of influence what is oscillating on the screen? As simple as that. As early as, this is concurrently going parallel with the development of video games. Okay, so we have Pong, we have all those, beat games on a very pixelated screen. And eventually, of course, we want to immerse ourselves. So people are desperate to, again, to get into the screen, as I mentioned. And they literally build something like that. And then as we go, as we go and we get a better graphical processing unit, we can produce 3D and then eventually a multiplayer sort of game, even though it is fairly pre-internet date. And since then, there's a lot of fiction writers speculating, filmmakers, trying to see what else. And of course, the advent of the multiverse of the superhero movies has sort of like stretched that even further from this earlier concept. And the advent and the introduction of internet and beyond really accelerate those exchange of information, and of course making it popular in a sci-fi movie like The Matrix really make the concept sort of part of pop culture. So the idea was really to see how software and hardware go hand in hand. Obviously, we have the conclusion of all things into one device, and then we have handheld hardware, because previously it was fairly desktop oriented, and then we get used to get in touch with other people digitally. So it is a transitional shift, slowly, talking on the internet. And of course, we have a lot more teleconferencing software right now. And the introduction of blockchain 10 years ago is what really makes the value chain or sort of creation of value could possibly happen. And then as we see at the far furthest end here, the idea was really to explore projects. Projects are fairly open. People are free actually to build any metaverse project, any token project, blockchain project. And the idea of decentralization came. Of course, we still have large, big players such as Meta, Microsoft in the space, of course. But it is not as hard as before, where we need distribution for example, our compact CDs. If you want to make a software like Doom, you need to have a distribution channels and etc. Is fairly democratized right now. Okay, so there is a popular game back in 2008, Second Life. I think most of you have heard of it. Second Life is really have a version of you online, and of course there are a few other games. I think games are fairly a testament of how well can you adopt what they call it social and psychological barriers. I mean, if it's socially unacceptable to talk with strangers, and social media and video games have make it slowly and surely acceptable. I mean, most of the people that play online don't even know each other, and I think that is important. First of all, to have trust on the system, on the people that actually regulate the system. That is the first line of understanding how people are pouring money into metaverse. Of course, as it grows, PlayStation is popular console, and World of Warcraft is multiplayer, massive multiplayer online role-playing game. Obviously, it is sort of like already a version of Metaverse, or what we can call it as Metaverse 1.0. People immerse themselves in that particular game. League of Legends is again another game. And basically it goes on, and the big companies coming in with their billions, and eventually at the end, if you look at the furthest end, as I mentioned, Microsoft are buying Activision Blizzard for 68 billion. So definitely there is value in the ecosystem. If not, this evaluation would not make sense. Okay, but if you look at the roadmap, is really from a proprietary, fairly closed game. Okay, for example, Second Life, to a bit more open, but you know, even though it's not truly decentralized like Roblox or virtual land in Sandbox here that been acquired by Snoop Dogg, but there is some level of democratization, and obviously as the project goes into DAO management in the future, people of the community, DAO means decentralized autonomous organization, a project can really be democratized. But obviously this is all ideals, and commercial term might not be as favorable to that, but it's okay. The idea was really to see the popularization of blockchain technology starting with cryptocurrency. I mean, blockchain technology are fairly old. They are there for quite some time, but their adoption to or rather case use are fairly limited to keeping ledgers and records. But with cryptocurrency, then eventually last few years, non-fungible tokens or NFT really have make blockchain technology, really have pushed blockchain technology to the mainstream. Okay, so the technologies, as I mentioned, is highly dependent on hardware. Hopefully, the problem with global chip shortage is really about managing the global supply chain. So there's a lot of products, even for example X70 that you might not thought, X50 for example, you might not thought has anything to do with this, actually have 70,000 orders that is on hold because they don't have chips. Even as simple as KDK fans, if you go to any electrical shop and you ask to buy fans, they are fairly limited because of those the controlling chip that is regulating the fan is fairly hard to get. So around the world, people are pouring money building new foundries. Okay, previously foundries are fairly concentrated in Taiwan. Okay, this is the company like TSMC. So the idea was really to push basically the architectural design of new computing power, graphic computing and central computing units are there. The architecture or the design are there. Just that we because of this shortage and exponential demand, we don't have enough fabrication capacity. So what I'm trying to say is, in simpler terms, is this: in the next 2-3 years, when the foundry are completed and the new chips are going to start rolling in, whatever you see now, the metaverse that you see, maybe you say, not for me, it's too cartoony, it's too low polygon, or it's too pixelated, will have at least a 10-fold upgrade by the next 2 or 3 years when the new chips are becoming fairly available. I mean, if you're trying to buy, for example, an RTX 3080 or 3090 6 months ago, it's going to cost you, 3090 is going to cost you 12 or 14K. So the shortage has somehow dampened the adoption of latest hardware. And once people are start to have those hardware smaller, for example, in your AR glasses, your laptops and whatnot, the outlook or the quality of metaverse will improve definitely at least like tenfold. So why we want to be inside metaverse? I mean, obviously as kids, I mean, at least my childhood, I watched Power Rangers, and people start claiming, oh, I'm the Red Rangers, or I'm the Blue, or whoever they like. We literally, always in the not in the mindset lah, but always want to be something else, something greater than us. Then that is intrinsic human intuitive that is leveraged on the concept of metaverse. The reason why you want to be inside metaverse, definitely to do things that you can't do, or to do things that you can do in real life, but an extension of that. So if you can talk to one person in real life, in metaverse you want to talk to multiple. If you can't jump a 30-story building and survive in real life, you can survive that in the metaverse. So it's either that or the other one. So either you want to extend your capacity in real life, or you want to do things that you can't do. And obviously, representation of us is again not a new concept. We have a representative totem in Monopoly, and avatars is fairly more relatable because they look humanoid. But during my midterm answer last year, I did mention that the ultimate eventual lead way of how we're going to represent ourselves, avatar, yes, you're gonna look like that, is for take, like for example, I'm a triangle in the metaverse. I'm just that. I'm just a triangle, or I'm a sphere. So that's where it truly becomes something. Because if you look at some of the earlier slides, Microsoft Metaverse don't have Microsoft avatars don't have feet, because they feel that it's a bit too distracting. Because feet moving on, and then torso up is fairly stable. You don't have that much movement. So the idea was really to see what kind of abstract reduction that we can make to the humanoid body to a point where people can accept. So it's all experiments. People are cutting legs, or people make a simplified totem like that, and see how people are reacting. Okay. And as I mentioned, avatars is a version of you online, so it's fairly simple to understand. As I've elaborated, you can be anyone in social media. Same to metaverse. Yeah. So a lot of avatars again has been introduced, or sort of a soft landing in your phone through emojis, and of course representation of yourself. I think if you use some of these smartphone features, you know what I meant. You can have your own cartoon head as part of the messaging, what do you call it, to express your expression, or to show your expression. But again, there's a lot of variety. Some avatars can be exported from other third parties. Some are platform specific. So and the art style are truly different. Some are fairly proportional. Some are fairly like a blobber head. The head is definitely bigger than the body. So it is fairly open, and the idea was really to celebrate the difference. Okay. At the same time, a lot of technologies have been developed, and of course, this is developed through film and also video game. Video game also do a lot of motion capture, what do you call it, exercise. If you look at popular video games lately, they will hire actual actor and actresses first to voice their character, but now to actually be the character of the video games. Okay, so it's developing, and obviously as we get a better what do you call it, metaverse platform, we're going to have the expression invite. The idea was really to get the cost down. Obviously, early on, licensing some of this technology would be expensive because it's new. But again, proprietaryship, as more innovation, more companies working on it, the price will be drive down. Okay, this is Second Life. Yeah, it's fairly old game. You can own business. Is fairly, because the premise of the game is Second Life. They try to make it as lifelike as possible, and as I said to you just now, metaverse nowadays are not really looking into representing or replicating the real life one-to-one. Again, it's an extension of you, or things that you can't be in real life. So this is the old idea of how metaverse work. Again, all these assets are, even though they say belong to you, or your account per se, actually administered by the game company. So if the game company say we're gonna stop support the game this date, I don't know how they're gonna compensate you, or maybe not at all. And basically all the things that you own going going with the server as well. Okay. Yep. It is a fair assessment. Actually, I would also say that Metaverse is a game, partially, with a value creation. That's all. I would emphasize on that value creation because that's all. I mean, to be honest, if it's just entertainment medium, it will not garner the attention or the what they call it, the hype that it has been riding on. The idea of you can make money on it, again, not investment advice. You should read prospectus of each Metaverse project or any Web3 project, and then basically evaluate their feasibility. So there are layers of Metaverse. Obviously, as you can see early on, it's all about experience, just like a video game. Okay, obviously you go in, you will experience something. Okay, there is interaction. Either you talk to a non-playable character, NPC, or you talk to another player in a multiplayer game, or you can shop, or you can dine, etc. And then the second one is discovery. Obviously, you find something, maybe user-generated content, USG. Okay, basically all the things that inside there not necessarily been built by the game developers. Meaning some other users are putting up their things inside to populate the world. Okay, the next one is when you have a creator economy. So this is where it starts to differ. So in a normal game, there might be an aspect of economy where you have a marketplace where you can sell, for example, your weapons, your what they call it, clothes. But again, that's been designed by the company, and then you are just trading between players, etc. And so on. And eventually, if we get there, decentralization, and then human interface, obviously to be closer and more intimate to you. Obviously, right now, the main perception people think about Metaverse is that you have to experience it through a goggle. Actually, desktop might be better right now because of the technology. Again, there are two issues. Hardware is one. Another one is the internet infrastructure. If you have a very good high computing hardware in your goggle or whatnot, but if you don't have enough bandwidth to carry all the polygons and the textures, you will still see it as a you can still differentiate lah, meaning this is not a immersive experience. And obviously, as we go down the list, if we can get to, I think 7 nanometer to 14, I think 1.4 there. Yeah, will be some of the later generate design chips. They're referring to the chip size actually, and then of course better GPUs, etc. in layer 7. But again, usually what differ Metaverse and video game is really this: games or traditional games per se will not have depth. Maybe it can go up to layer 2, you can buy something, etc., or maybe 3, you can trade between. But again, it's all about creating value at the end of the day with some level of authority or some level of ownership. Okay, now what makes Metaverse different now? Obviously, as I mentioned multiple times, is the re-emergence of blockchain technology with the old archaic Metaverse technology. So I would just go through these 4 concepts very quickly with simplest way I can. So the blockchain ecosystem in Metaverse 2.0, definitely there are more, okay, that can be branched out from each particular subset. But the thing that you have to understand is fairly simple. Blockchain is Excel on steroids. So if you like Excel that look like this, it's a ledger lah, basically, okay? And then you give Excel steroids, hopefully it could be this. So basically, if you could take one of those screenshot as sort of like hash. They call hash meaning when they compute a transaction or a record lah, basically when they write a record inside a block Okay, again, it's not in the real thing. It's not literally a block. It doesn't have to look like a square. It doesn't have to look like a box. But what I'm trying to say is it is a subset of data that is bundled together. Blockchain technology is just that, technology of keeping records. That's all. Okay, as simple as that. That's why it took a while for people to actually think about its case use. What can we do with record keeping? Okay, so if you have a block, now you chain them together, and then again, I'm not talking in how it should be explained in a technical term, but if you want to visualize what a blockchain is, this is as simple as I could boil it down. Basically, if you have multiple blocks, okay, and these blocks are going to check each other. Okay, for example, if you change, transaction for Amy to Ali, instead of 50, you change to 100. Let's say you want to hack the ledger. The other blocks will check their own record and say that, oh no, actually, Amy to Ali is only $50 the transaction between them. So they will subcorrect it. Basically, will overwrite the one that misdocument. So really, if you want to hack the ledger, you need to hack at least 50. But I've been told that there are cases where they manage to hack the ledger for some reason. But in concept, they should be immutable, meaning they can't be changed unless you change 51% of the computer that hold the ledger. Who hold the ledger? Everyone that wants to participate in hosting the ledger. Your computers, some of them are building large crypto farms. That is where the ledgers has been partially maintained. And at the end of the day, it is decentralized. It's not owned by anyone. It's just like the internet. It's not like the internet. Of course, you have your ISP, Internet Service Provider. But again, your ISP is not the owner of internet. They are providing you the internet. But again, it's fairly democratic to a certain extent. And the idea of decentralization start from here. Instead of having a ledger in your bank, like CIMB, which have their own data center and whatnot, you have the data spread out to millions of computers. That's how you should see it. Instead of centralized, one location, it is, cut into pieces and spread over millions of computers. Another way to think about it is the 555 notebook, where you can record each transaction or IOUs inside and put it on a chain. So that's as simple as that. And you make copies lah. So let's say the one that you change one of the notebook, you still have multiple notebooks to check who owns you what, and who owns you how much. So if you want to take it fairly low tech. Okay. So blockchain, distributed ledger or database, around the globe, whoever wants to be part of it. But again, I will not go into how blockchain is maintained because there's two major concepts. Okay, one is proof of work and another one is proof of stake. It's fairly, they work in a different way, but the way that the blockchain checks each other is fairly similar. Okay, so that is the first part. Hopefully I go through it painlessly. And the second one is cryptocurrency. I think this is a bridge for normal people like us to start understanding or start even take notice of what blockchain is. And basically in 2008, there's a lot of, I think prime, I think prime, what do you call it? Real estate bonds, I think, if not mistaken, bust, and basically there is a market crisis. And of course, it also affects countries like Greece and other countries that is fairly, what do you call it, affected by those subprime loans. Yeah. So it's been told that it is, okay, we're going to just talk about Bitcoin because there's a lot of coins. So we don't, one of the earliest breakthrough that makes blockchain popular is Bitcoin. supposedly been told that it is invented by Satoshi. Again, there is no actual person that has been identified as Satoshi, and people say even the name is made up. Okay, basically the idea of the name as a pseudonym is fairly popular. People in the blockchain world, or at least crypto world, don't want to identify themselves. They want to remain anonymous in a way. So the name is being written in Bitcoin white paper. I think you can find it online, Bitcoin white paper, if you want to read further. Okay, and there are some suspects. I think there's a lot of suspects, not only two, and they said that it is actually an acronym of brands, Japanese and Korean brands that has been chopped up together and created that name. So it could be true. It could be, again, people are speculating, and this is some of the arguments against and for some of the possible inventor of Bitcoin. But again, people in this space like to be anonymous. Okay. So this is proof of work. Just to understand, proof of work is really for you to resolve a transactional algorithm, and basically you're going to be rewarded with a Bitcoin, and that exercise is called farming. So sometimes when you have a large enough computing power, you can somehow override people. Okay, okay. As simple as this lah. It's like winning a tender. Okay, people that has better officers, Revit and all those flashy softwares, or large paid up capital, fairly stable, has a lot of track records, has the better potential of winning that tender versus people that just using a laptop to mine, and most likely the laptop cannot even resolve the transactional algorithm in time. So wherever that has better computing power, that's why they built commercial farms, will be rewarded when they resolve the transactional algorithm. And the reason why they have value, why Bitcoin have value, because it has a hard cap of 21 million. So only 21 million will be ever mined or distributed. And then basically, if you look at it now, we already have distributed 90% of the supply, actually. So we are nearing the end. But as you grow, as more Bitcoin be introduced in the market, the difficulty of algorithm to solve a transaction will be doubled. The difficulty will be doubled, will be doubled, will be doubled. So it's like a compounding effect of doubling difficulties, and they called it halving. So even though a similar transaction is going to be twice as hard as you go, and even though we already have 90% distributed, okay, the last 10% to be distributed, let's say 2022, it will be distributed around 80 years down the line. Even though we have mined a lot, 90%, the last 10%, if we going with the computing rate that we are going now, will take us another 80 years to just mine the last 10%. So that's when Bitcoin will be capped. Looking at other medium that hold value, for example, fiat. Fiat has no limit. You can just fly. The green curve can go. As they have quantity easing and all this exercise, it can go on. Okay, fiat has no correlation to most countries don't have that correlation to minerals or hard cap per se. And gold also will increase to a certain extent as long as we can mine more gold, and we're gonna get a cap to that, at least if it's just limited to what we can find on Earth lah. Okay, if you can find more gold on the mineral in the asteroid in the future, that may be something else. While Bitcoin will literally, so it's not 2,100, but 2,140. Yeah. So to even longer than 80 years, 120 years in fact. So the Bitcoin supply will limit it to 21 million, and that's all. So even though it's not been pegged to anything of value, for example, gold or any fiat currency, the fact that it is a hard cap digital currency, that is what I call it, representation of value. People start to value those medium, and that what I call it, notion has been made mainstream with easy, again, not endorsing Luno, with easy and simple interface with like a digital wallet like Luno. I mean, of course, more hardcore players will go with more sophisticated software like Binance and why not. But Luno, for example, I'm stating here because they have Security Commission's license in Malaysia. Okay, and right now there's only 5 cryptocurrency that is allowed by Security Commission to be purchased by Malaysia. Nah. Okay, if you are living in another country, depending on your jurisdiction. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Ripple, and Bitcoin Cash is some of the coins that you can buy from Luno. Basically, Luno is not it's not a wallet, it's not a digital wallet, just like an app lah, interface. So don't mistake it. Bitcoin, altcoin, all this are Bitcoin. So as simple as that. The coins are limitless, not limitless lah. There's a lot lah. I'm trying to say, people can do their own coins, do coins on top of another coin, do a token on top of another token. So some of these tokens are built upon, for example, Ethereum. So you can build upon other blockchain network as well. Okay, so that is cryptocurrency. So now you have second component, which is transferable medium of value, because you can keep immutable records now. Okay, so that's how the value chain started. That's how Metaverse 2.0 come into picture. Now, non-fungible tokens, I think Pam has done a few sessions about non-fungible tokens. Don't worry, this is going to be a 5-6 slide thing. Non-fungible referring to unique and can't be replaced with something else. It's more or less like how I mentioned just now, blockchain keep record and cannot be changed, etc. And token is you tokenizing something, meaning you are giving a representation of something intangible or tangible. It could be art or a song, a file. For example, a photo right here, like a cranberry bottle juice, and then basically you forge it in a blockchain, and then now the JPEG has a hash and has been tokenized inside a blockchain. So even when I say blockchain, there's a lot of blockchain. You can have Binance Smart Chain, you have the Ethereum chain, Solana chain. There's a lot of chains as well. So it's not that everyone necessarily keeping the same ledger. Okay, there is a multiple versions or multiple projects of ledgers as well. Okay, they have characteristic. Okay, to be honest, Bitcoin is fairly archaic, and the newer coins, why they get traction are because their properties, their behavior and characteristic are much more interesting. But they can update, okay, what the coin's behavior or the crypto behavior. And if you look at Ethereum right now, they are trying to move from proof of work to proof of stake, but it's going to take quite some time to do it. So to visualize what is fungible and not fungible, okay, a crypto like Bitcoin, Ethereum is fungible, meaning one Bitcoin from me is the same value to 1 Bitcoin to you. It doesn't matter as long as we get 1 Bitcoin. Just like your fiat money lah, like 10 note from me, 10 ringgit note from me is the same 10 ringgit note from you. So I don't have to get my specific note. Unlike non-fungible, for example, this art, I mean, this is what they call art, is subjective. So this artwork, 8-bit artwork, is non-fungible. There's only one version of that. And then you will start asking, isn't it a digital file? Can't I make a copy? Yes, you can. The copy that you made is just a copy lah. And the original version or the minted one is going to always be the only one. Okay, so just like how you see paintings, of course you can have a copy of a painting, but again the original one still hold value, and the copy maybe, I don't know, 50, 100 ringgit, and the original one could be 100,000 or 50,000. So that's how you should see about it. I mean, of course, it is fairly similar. It's a digital file, either it's a JPEG, PNG, MP4, or 3D files. But again, the fact that you're holding it just for your consumption is fine. You can look at it, you can, watch it, hear it, but it holds no value in the market. Okay, so on this side is the physical asset or tangible asset that is fungible and non-fungible. Again, gold, money is fungible physical, and non-fungible physical is like painting or other prize. For example, a very exotic car or very unique house that you design. Okay. So what can be tokenized? So right now it's fairly limited to files. Okay. So if you can get it in a file form, it can be tokenized. But I think there's a lot of things can be tokenized in the future, including protocols, meaning that instead of just files, it's a subset of for example, a protocol for XYZ machine or for the 3D printing machine. So everything that you can think of could be tokenized if it's digital. Okay, so this is an example of earlier NFT sales by Beeple. Beeple is a very modest digital artist that did a lot of work daily. Basically, this particular artwork been sold for 6.6 million USD, and again, it rides on the fact that it became one of the first NFT or real breakthrough NFT that been sold in Christie's auction. Okay, so as I mentioned, you can copy a digital file, but the file that you copy might not be NFT. NFT are designed to be copy-proof. I mean, not copy-proof in the sense that you can't have the JPEG, but you can't have a double, what do you call it, registrant inside the blockchain, unless you design it to be so. For example, you are selling NFT tickets, you're selling 10,000 copy, then of course it will be in multiply lah. Okay. Digital certificate, just like your grant or your title lah, if you want to think about it simply as that. And then basically it will have some description and then basically some hash attributes linked to it. Okay. So NFT project could be as simple as a profile photo like this monkey, could be in multiply, in trading cards or tickets, or it could be a certificate of actual art. But of course, this is a very generic what do you call it, understanding of what NFT project could be. Even avatars could be tokenized, and a lot more things that you can find in between, not necessarily like hard division between those category. Okay, so as simple as that lah. As I mentioned, file will be minted on whatever blockchain, for example, Ethereum or Solana, and basically it could be sold on a marketplace such as OpenSea or our local one, Pentas.io. Pentas.io, fairly exclusive for BNB chain or Binance Smart Chain right now. So it's dependent on which chain you're minting your work on and which platform you can sell it on. Again, there's a lot of marketplace starting to do multi-chain, and eventually at the end of the day, it's all about interoperability between chains in the future. Okay, so this is some of the platforms and the blockchain they work on, and then basically you can write, you can put your what do you call it, royalty fee inside. So that's what difference, what differ it from an physical artwork. The physical artwork usually rose in value way after, maybe second, third sub-sale, something like that. But never benefit the original artist. In NFT, you can have your royalty permanently minted in the smart contract, and then you can benefit that as the artwork change hands and the transaction continues. You will get a percentage of each transaction. Okay, so now you have the proof of ownership there, and it also creates some level of trust because the chain is not administered by anyone. So basically, you know that it's going to be a neutral third party, not the Metaverse company that building the Metaverse or the developers of the Metaverse. Now the last part that makes everything runs, which is the oil, you can say as such, is the smart contract protocols. In a traditional contract, or if you imagine your building contract, BD, BAM, CID, you have parties to go into contract and be upheld by a third party. In our case, is the government of Malaysia lah, because this contract will say it's governed by Malaysian law or something like that. And basically, you work it out. The execution is there. Now, with smart contract, you don't need that trustworthy party because you kind of know it will run automatically. So these parties will go into, they don't have to go into the smart contract by engaging with a certain, when I buy a certain NFT or I do this and that, by conduct, I already engage with the contract. The contract is built in the files, not a separate document that you have to sign off and agree on. Okay, to visualize, I think this is a fairly common example that people gave, is to look at vending machines. Okay, you see the price. Okay, imagine the vending machine glass is sort of like the marketplace. You see the NFTs, or you see the drinks that you want. You know the prices. So to engage with that machine, you just have to compute the right number to get whatever drinks you want, and basically choose the drinks. And then what happened behind the scene, they will take the number, they will take the money, will process it out, and then look at your selection and eventually give your drinks. So the user input a cash and then you get the drinks, meaning that you're already in engagement of smart contract. Again, you don't engage it by you engage it by conduct lah. Cut it short. Okay, so same goes to blockchain. As simple as that. So example of smart contract could be the royalty that I mentioned. So every time transaction happen, okay, you as the original person that actually mint that artwork will get a royalty percentage of that transaction. There's a lot of, in this particular case, it's Ethereum lah, Ethereum protocols. There's a lot of it, and they are fairly free. People are fairly free to write new protocols if they want. Okay, a common one is like ERC20, ERC721, and more complicated one is like 1155. And basically, if you think about it, it's as simple as everything that you want to do in real life, as simple as that has been translated into smart contract. For example, royalty is not really a new concept. It's happening in real life. They just need to write how to replicate the real life situation of getting royalty into a protocol. Leasing, for example, you want to lease a digital asset. Okay, it's not as simple as, I mean, of course you have a lease agreement in real life, but if you want to make it a smart contract that self-execute, then you need to somehow work out the protocols. Or even to produce multiple NFT versus simply minting one NFT. That's a different protocol for that as well. So you have all this self-executing. So it's going to be fast, okay, and then it's going to be fairly independent and trustworthy. I mean, to a certain extent, trustworthiness is there. Okay. Now, problem with traditional games, if you played, I'm sorry for the depiction of guns, again, not endorsing guns. This is a popular Counter-Strike Go game, or Counter-Strike to the older generation that, I mean, at least I played during my childhood. So basically the idea was really to see how can you, some people really invest
on these games, buying guns, buying uniform, etc. But the problem is gaming company actually has ultimate ownership. As I mentioned, they might give you the pseudo or the impression of you own this, okay, by allotting this asset to your account, but actually they own everything and you can't take the item out from their platform. Okay, for example, gun skins or characters, in Dota, characters, what they call it, costume or visualization. Okay, another thing is trading digital assets is fairly restricted by the company. The company decides if you want to allow only interplayer exchange. So, for example, I want to exchange my character's, a weapon to another character's weapon within the game, but not outside. So again, that is a restriction, and this is what blockchain has revolutionized, because they will have a stamp on ownership. Unlike the game actually does not only differs you by account, and when the company shut down the server, as I mentioned, everyone's item gone, regardless of how many dollars you spend on upgrading your characters. And of course, they are built on fiat currency. Nothing against fiat currency. Again, all this cryptocurrency are really just for people to earn. Eventually, what all these people want actually, they want to actually translate that into fiat and spend without being taxed. That's the challenge lah. But you have to understand why people are so caught up in this digital world. It's not that they want to live in the digital world. Okay, they just want to earn and somehow translate that value to fiat where they can enjoy actual things. So if you have the mindset that, people are going to lose themselves in the metaverse, etc., it's actually not true, because, it's as simple as looking at people browsing their WhatsApp or Facebook for 7 hours, but you just translate it into 3D. Okay, that's the equivalent of it. That is one. Another one is that whatever they earn, they actually want to enjoy it in real life. So they will buy things. Obviously our legal tender is a fiat currency. So they will somehow try to make a conversion or exchange. Okay. And then another problem is cross-application interoperability. Of course, games have licensing deals. For example, FIFA has licensing deals. Electronic Sport have licensing deals with FIFA. So they have, all the character likeness, all the clubs registered under FIFA. But they can't take, for example, this to whoever Liverpool fans, Alexander Arnold, into another game or use it in Microsoft Mesh. For example, I want to be him in a different game. I can't, because of the way that they design it and licensing between companies. Okay. So a new way of moving video games is to look at trading. Of course, we have to make trading more democratic through digital ownership. Again, all this will be put into inverted commerce lah. There's no such thing as true or truly decentralized. There is, to a certain extent, cross application interoperability, and has to be secure and immutable, definitely. And this is a few slides from Sandbox. Sandbox is a popular digital LAN game. I would say they are a game first, because they are heavily gamified. And Metaverse, compared to video game, is all about creativity and imagination and opportunity. Video games, they build everything for you, and then you play within the set rules and physics. To a certain extent, Metaverse also have that set rules and physics, but they encourage USG, user-generated content, just like YouTube. So even if you want to imagine it, okay, YouTube is just a platform. If you want to imagine YouTube as a metaverse, okay, just imagine YouTube as a platform. They themselves don't produce videos. Okay, people, that is users, going to generate content for the platform. So eventually people will spend time in YouTube looking at other people's content, not the platform owners or developers' content. So 5 pillars of entering Metaverse is obviously to give value. So number one, obviously how to onboard people is actually to give value. Value, I mean, literally could be monetary value, or even other forms of connection or access. So it could be, one of these. But again, I'm not going to go into what the item are. So reward the user for their contribution. Of course, in this particular space, it's all about collaboration. The fact that we maintain a ledger, the blockchain ledger, together, and then being rewarded for maintaining the ledger is the whole foundation of the psychological, psychological approach, how this new decentralized world works. Meaning you do a portion of the work, you get rewarded. So a lot of this gamified metaverse has play to earn model, and then basically have a circular economy. As I mentioned, YouTube, okay, they allow their creators to monetize on their platform. So the reason why people putting up content, because there is opportunity to learn, to earn maybe, yes, but to earn. So that's why you have a lot of creators. If they have another, I mean, I'm sure you have heard of other video streaming platform previously before YouTube, but YouTube really nailed down how they can monetize and allow people to monetize on their platform. So that's why they are fairly popular. Okay, and of course you have to a certain extent embracing NFT culture. But I want to warn you that not all metaverse are actually on chain or related to blockchain. Not all, and then basically not all metaverse has to connected to or be connected to NFTs, especially when it's for your own individual consumption. But if you are thinking about a wider array of people to come in and then basically earn on your platform, then definitely it will be part of the your metaverse ecosystem. Okay, so yeah, this is again from Sandbox. So don't put me on this. This is what they said. Sold out collection within minutes, provide monetary benefits to players as those asset rose in value. Okay, encourage user-generated content. Of course, they always allow you to populate the world, but they will provide enough nudge for you to somehow fill up the rest. Meaning, if they come in and then they show you an empty, barren land with nothing, with no direction, with no landmarks, with no attraction, they will be difficult to actually generate that value. But when they bring in large IPs, intellectual properties or brand name like Snoop Dogg and Atari and all those plots around and start to activate and basically become slightly more valuable and co-create, a new world. Basically, you are there to redefine the skyline of those metaverse. It's a totally separate approach of what video game is. Video game, they have laid out everything. You go through the experience to get, to get the full story out of that. And then unleash your creativity, of course. When you have that opportunity to build upon, you can somehow be smart, build a business on top of a business. Obviously, metaverse providers such as Sandbox is already a business, but you can has a second layer business on top of it. For example, you can rent out maybe a space inside the metaverse, or maybe you can have a private event that you collect tickets, paid tickets to get in. So actually, they allow you to be creative, and as far as I know, they are fairly open, meaning the parameters are fairly loose. If you have a feature that they don't have, you can talk to them and say that, oh, maybe the market are going this way. We need this new feature to come in, because when a video game ship out, usually they will have updates as well, but not as fluid or as direct as a metaverse project is. In a metaverse project, users can just reach out to developers that say that, oh, my project requires this, and this. Can you, somehow broaden your parameter to allow this to happen? Okay, so in Sandbox particularly, they give you an editing software, which is Vox Edit, because their art style in their metaverse are fairly voxel. Voxel is like a 3D, pixel is 2D, and then when you make it cube, it's called voxel. So a voxel based art style, and you can edit, even though you have no 3D experience, but of course, as an architect, you have better spatial understanding. This will be a second nature to you, lah. Basically, if you want to be in this world, you have to be in a certain way. The reason why, because again, there is a certain physics that is set in the metaverse. As you can see, different metaverse have different outlook. So in Sandbox particularly, they want to limit, obviously, geometry count, the textures, because games are fairly optimized, meaning if every texture in the game is a 1K texture, you're going to be 1K texture all around. Okay? If we start bringing user-generated content in, some people might put 4K texture on their character, and then there's a 1K texture on this car, and 2K texture on this house, and then you will start see the illusion of the immersion will start broke. Because you kindly know, oh, okay, this is from different person. It's not as amalgamated as real world. Real world, through your eye, everything you look has one resolution, right? So in digital world, if they don't set this resolution or limit of file size or whatever, there's a lot of mechanism to do this. Either you limit the texture size, either you limit the overall 3D file size. Like Decentraland is totally another discussion. But the idea was really to recreate what your eye see. If for example my visual perception here, I see one person as a fully anatomically correct person, and another person fairly pixelated, it's not going to make sense lah. So that's why they do this, and basically they allow you to put attributes again. When they do this, actually what they do is they try to box your asset into the parameter that their metaverse can accept. Okay, because it's a user-generated content. Same as YouTube. I mean, you can't just take a 4K cinema size format and just upload everything to YouTube. They will do a compression. They will accept certain file formats. There will, there is some limitation, and it's fairly normal, even for WhatsApp, even profile photo in your Facebook, there is parameters, okay? And at the same time, you are being, there's a lot of quests for you to earn, for example, create a new thing or play, win a game. It's gamification of Metaverse. But again, Sandbox are built by a gaming company, so they are fairly geared towards fairly inclined to get gamified, what do you call it, Metaverse. Okay, what can you do on the ecosystem? So you could, collaborate in a multi-device. Some could be in, what do you call it, in real life. Some could be in AR. Some could be AR, augmented reality. Or some could be in VR, or some could be in smartphone devices, etc. Same, just like this. So some could be in just a Zoom call kind of thing. So you don't have even an avatar, you just have your face there, your real face. Some wants to be in the space to point out, which, boxes or whatever you are working on. You could make yourself apparent in the 3D form, and then you can cancel or close, just like how you close your camera. Like you close your camera, your avatar gone, and you become a person again in the Zoom call, for example. You can create content, obviously, in a simple game like Roblox. My son plays this. He's 4 years old. He actually, when we go for Raya, for some reason, this kid somehow knows that they can collaborate. So I don't even know this is happening until like a few moments of silence, like while they are sitting on the sofa quietly. They are actually on their smartphone, respectively, and actually can see each other and collaborate on a thing or a drawing or like a game. Guess what I'm drawing, something like that. Yeah, so it's fairly collaborative. Of course, this is at this moment of time, it's not in a not being used in a production or productivity way like the Microsoft Mesh. But again, the introduction of technology to kids, again, softly introducing them to the fact that they can collaborate in real time through a simple software like this, even though it looks very basic, is important for the future softwares, for more sophisticated softwares to be introduced in the future. content creation, of course, virtual economy, and then basically the idea of economy in Metaverse is fairly related to tokenomics. I will not explain too much about what in detail, but if you want to think about, I want to design a new world, a metaverse per se, and you said, okay, now I'm declaring myself as the government of the metaverse, as a developer company, you need to think about how you want to administer value. So you must have some level of understanding how your token going to behave. Okay, for some token have self inflationary mechanism. So for example, every transaction the token being used, they will burn themselves by 1% of that transaction value. So every time people transact, the amount of token is, the supply of token going to reduce as more people transact. But at the same time, as the person that actually hold the authority on how the token being distributed, you also can withhold token supply. Token cryptocurrency lah. Tapi token is actually built on top of certain chain, and basically usually what I call it, specific to a certain metaverse project or NFT project per se. So this is some of distribution that they can show, maybe 50% for staking and farming, and then even this token is being distributed, they can also be vested, meaning I give you 100, but in 10 weeks. So every 1 week I release 10. It could have that mechanism as well. So there's a lot of things that can go on. What else can be done? Obviously you can put ads. I think this is fairly straightforward. You know, you have eyeballs. So what else? Put ads. And of course commerce. Again, there's a lot of platforms, Lazada, Shopee, all these Web2 platforms. It also could be integrated into Metaverse. I think this is fairly, e-commerce is fairly common. And basically changing, exchanging goods or services for a value is nothing new. And you can work to evaluate certain, Metaverse project, if you want to look at it as a viable option to put your money in or not, is to really look at how do they self-administer themselves. Could be as simple as they mint a new NFT, and then people just do their own research and decide the seller is trustworthy or not. Because you have to understand, most of this NFT gonna be worthless. Okay, right now they are worth something because they are fairly new. So if you look at some of the headlines, the first NFT that have been designed by computers, the first NFT that is designed by generative, or generative, meaning they give you a subset and then the computer gonna make 10,000 variation. The subset is gonna, depending lah, if you are designing a cat face, the subset gonna be the eyelashes, eye. So the novelty of the process right now, but as those technology become more common, as people, I think there is, a quoted statement that 90% of today's NFT gonna be worthless. So same goes to Metaverse project. At the end of the day, amalgamation gonna happen. I mean, of course, back then you have a lot of e-commerce platform and whatnot, and then eventually it boils down to Lazada, Shopee, etc. People just flock into this big three or big two. So you have to bear that in mind, okay? Or you can do another way of looking at viability is looking at their white paper, and then basically looking at other things that have similar attribute or similar projects. Okay, looking at basically how many how many interventions that the company are putting or imposing on the platform. Most of the platform supposedly designed to be decentralized. Basically, once they set up, and then that's the rule that you're going to play with. But sometimes companies do intervene. So that will not be favorable because it's sort of like a big unknown, or could be changing the whole dynamic, and then you might lose your thing. And then we try to finish within stipulated time. 1 hour. Oh, okay. So there's a lot of metaverse archetype out there: Decentraland, Sandbox, Cityverse, Mona, On Cyber, SZ Affinity, and they are grouped or can be bounded into certain class. Some of them are overlapping. Some, for example, digital land or digital real estate. Some are gallery metaverses. Some are video game metaverse, heavily social metaverse, or for example, a bit more industrial robust solution by NVIDIA. It will be in the form of a digital twin. These platforms are catering to different age band, the kids, the youth, the adults. So, I mean, they are not necessarily, restricted in that manner, but their intended audience are as such. The metaverse can also be divided into either off or on chain. Chain means connected to a blockchain, or it's not connected to a blockchain. All metaverse does not have to be connected to a blockchain to be defined as one. Okay, and some of them are open source, or some of them are software based. You have gaming engine, for example, powered by gaming engine like Sansa or Mona Gallery. Okay, and on the other side, on-chain metaverse could be all these listed. FT Affinity, on-chain, Decentraland, for example, again, is a digital land metaverse. Decentraland looks like this. I will just go through it. It has native currency called Mana, okay, and then it's a distributed land ownership, and they have a DAO for a governing body. DAO again is decentralized autonomous organization. It is basically collective ownership of all people that own land inside Decentraland. This is how it looks like. There is multiple plot of land, roads, and then district, and basically they are in each plot of land is actually originally 10 to 10 meters, the size, and they have a vote inside their DAO, meaning they are collectively together decide that it should be increased to 16 by 16 to cater larger 3D assets. So this is some statistic of land. Basically, land are in Decentraland, there is also zoning, just like what we used to. They have private land, of course. They have district, a collection of private land, and public land, basically for events or other spatial arrangement for leasing. And they have roads as well. This all of this, affect their value. And their avatar looks like this, fairly humanoid. Okay, with the parameter to change all those. Sandbox, I think I mentioned this across the presentation, is voxelated art style. It's fairly similar to Minecraft, actually. It's where you can actually host your own game, create assets and sell them, socialize, of course. And basically, there's a lot of models inside. Either you can go there just to trade items, or you can play games to earn, or you can host game or create game, or you can buy land or socialize. Again, there's a lot of case use, and this is some of the partners that has bought land in Sandbox, or bought or been given. I'm not so sure, but there is some arrangement for their presence inside Sandbox. This is Sandbox map per se. Sandbox is a bit larger, 96 by 96, because they are gamified. So if you are in a game, in real life, you're gonna walk fairly modest, with modest speed, but in games, they're gonna walk in quite a velocity. So that's why it's a bit larger. And again, they are not one-to-one scale to life. If you look at their avatars, are fairly smaller than humanoid size. They also have the land hierarchy from land, estate, and eventually district. So you can couple up together with other wallets. Wallets mean wallet addresses of other party or individuals to collectively create a district. This is what I think quite interesting about Sandbox is that their avatars is actually a collection of 13 NFTs. So actually, they are NFT, meaning that this whole model, humanoid model, is actually one token. And inside those tokens, there is another 13 separate tokens that is, interchangeable. So you can change the head, the head, the head, the torso, etc. I mean, what does it do is that when you own the torso, you can sell, again, the torso. I mean, it sounds like you're chopping a person up and selling body parts, but literally that's what it is. Right, I think at the time I took this, there is, 180K created account or connected account to a digital wallet, and then 5,600 landowners. Yeah, actually not so much, to be honest. Again, the box edit, they have a whole suite of things lah. Basically, they have the marketplace, they have the software editor, etc. A new upcoming Metaverse Star Atlas, space-inspired, what I call it, Metaverse. Again, this is a gamified Metaverse. They are fairly heavy upon narrative of you are alien world, etc., and you try to conquer planets. This is a bit more, what I call it, maybe closer to us. But digital twin is totally, a different ball game. Thousands or billions of investment needs to be invested for a specific solution. For example, BMW factory, they can build it and simulate the process, and then basically have that simulation improve over time. When they have a certain threshold, for example, we want to produce 100 cars per day. When they met those thresholds, that they can replicate that into actual factory, or they can model their actual factory now and see where the problem is, where the bottleneck is. So either or. It's like post design or pre-design. Of course, there's a lot of corporate or industrial solution by NVIDIA. Digital twin of a Earth just to simulate climate adaptation, and of course disease spreading inside your body also can be replicated. So you can have a metaverse of your body and see how the cells circulate, and for example cancer cell spread, and that simulation can somehow improve, because when you do simulation, instead of meeting 1,000 patients, you can simulate 1 billion times and see how it goes. Same goes to the artificial intelligence that actually teach itself to play IGO or chess. Basically, they can play with themselves and they improve themselves and make ridiculous moves, even though might not be logical to human. But since they are simulating and seeing the options, they can simulate again climate change, pattern of typhoon, and of course the what do you call it? The belt, I can't remember what it is, but it's climate related lah. So basically real world and basically connected to the Omniverse platform, and then connected to multiple metaverses, independent metaverses. I think one case study they did on power plant that cost them 5 billion to build the digital twin of a power plant, but every year there is a either shortage of supply or disruption of supply that cost the power plant 3 billion every year. So, even though it sounds ridiculous to build a digital twin for 5 billion, but actually it's fairly, moderate expenses to simulate so that shortages don't or interruption don't happen. A more robust hardware in your what do you call it, cars and eventual gadgets will improve. The simulation that the metaverse can happen within your vehicle. For example, another version of the surrounding will be mapped to allow your car to drive themselves. So even though the car is in real world, but at the same time they are mapping to have a duplicate inside and internally make decision, in nanoseconds to steer or accelerate the car, for example. And of course, logistics is a big thing right now. There's a lot of online businesses heavily reliant upon logistics. So logistics are also slowly being automated. Cars, traffic simulation, traffic light. So for example, like real life, and then there's a metaverse version inside in your computer. So what you can see is this, and then what your computer is seeing is totally different subset of information. So again, combination of all other technologies, of course, LiDAR, radar. So again, as I mentioned, Metaverse by itself is not a new technology. it needs the integration of the feed of others. Okay, there's a video, but actually all of them has video, but it's okay. We just pass through because we have 30 minutes. This is a bit more hobbies level platform. You can see that it is fairly friendly, fairly cartoony, doesn't have legs, doesn't have arm, but got hands, which is what you need. And basically, you can export. It's also, you know, a start of interoperability. You can bring in your facial feature, get it generated to an avatar and bring inside. And then there's a lot of pre-made scenes that you can choose from. You can walk, you can, you know, I will show a demonstration of this at the end of this presentation. So, you know, what it can be used for, virtual classroom, for example, if you want to create a more engaging, you know, at least, obviously Zoom, if you ask me, a bit more efficient because you are, you know, you get a full screen of the material, but sometimes you just need that feeling of spatial classroom. And of course, you can talk, and the voice are proximity sensitive. If you are near each other, you can hear each other. But when you walk further away, you will not, you know, you will not hear your friend's voice. It's not like Zoom. Wherever you go, you will hear your voice equally. But of course, there is some limitation lah. Basically, it has to be. I mean, this is fairly. It came with the territory lah. He has to have internet, and basically you can log into one room at one time. There's a lot of application. I think it's easily, you know, viewed on the internet. You can just go, shopping, branding, heritage conservation, etc. I just want to show a Wellington city digital twin that looks fairly similar to if you've been, you know, if you played video games before, SimCity 4 or City XL or City Skyline. It's more or less that. This is the digital twin of the city. They manage the city just like how, you know, you can manage in video games. So you can actually trace how many people take the bike, or how many tram, or how many people are waiting on a station. But of course, it comes with the territory, big, you know, the territory of big brother conversation of privacy. But again, there's no individual disclosure of, you know, identification of individuality. It's just a generic statistic. But again, this is a governmental level. In real metaverse, it's not really prudent to do it, especially when, you know, our country, our building regulation is good, but the way that we build, I mean, how many buildings you think are not submitted and been constructed anyway? So not really. It depends on the climate lah, or of the governmental structure. How you can get a structure approved, then, you know, to a certain extent maintain this metaverse. If not, it's gonna be like a one-off, and then everything looks different. I mean, I'm sure you're aware that, for example, Putrajaya has a model fee. You need to submit a model so they can put in the master plan. But again, is it exactly replicated in real life? Is a question mark. That is a simple physical model, but in this digital ever interacting model, it's a totally different story. Yeah, so they can simulate. For example, they want to introduce a new tram route or bus route, just like in video games. They can already simulate the possible ridership, and then what is the, what they call it, possible the fare hike or whatever lah you want to decide your policy on. But of course, this is exercise that a lot of countries are doing. In Korea, there is a digital twin as well. But again, to a certain extent of success rate lah. Obviously, some people just want a basic, maybe just want to have a building stock and GFA calculation, plot ratio, just want to control plot ratio, maybe building height, maybe. In this particular case, it's fairly sophisticated when it's also managing traffic, etc. So that, you know, it looks really like a video, and it's been developed on video game engine. So, okay. Other than that, machineries, even oil rig. I think Petronas has their own digital twin as well for maintenance. They can actually simulate which part is going to fail first, so they can replace that. And they have a different parts replacement cycle. So, like, for example, this hose, like every 3 years, that hose is every 6 months, because of the forces of the wind and how it is simulated in the you know, open seas. Yeah. Other than that, other very specific, digital world metaverses like F1 simulator, and others industrial application. So how can architect participate? Obviously, I mean the most obvious one to design the environment. This is by Zaha Hadid's. This is Liberland, sort of like micronations. I think it's not real, but yeah, the project has been somehow turned into metaverses, and then you can walk around in this bespoke metaverse. I don't think it's on chain, so there's no creation of value that we talk about, but there is experience lah. You can walk around and see how it is. If you want to look at it simply, you can just appreciate the intricacy of the geometry. You already know that to a certain extent. This is sort of like a proprietary bespoke metaverse, not for the mass lah. Because if you want to design for the mass, you will design to the lowest common denominator. Like what kind of hardware are you targeting, so that more computers owners can actually participate. This is a building. This is when I said when it's on a public what they call it platform such as Decentraland. This is by BIG, their Ingles Group. For Vice is a media company. Basically, this is vice versa, or vice versa. Basically, Tolix inside a cube. So this is real architects designing spaces in Metaverse. And you can see that in Decentraland, they have rules, meaning height rules, the formula of setback, there is some regulation. And of course, the geometry count, the file size has to occur. So you can see it's fairly rough. Meaning not as refined as you want it to be lah. I mean, it has to again using the lowest common denominator. And Decentraland is browser-based metaverse, meaning whatever metaverse that can be streamed into the browser. Okay, unlike Sandbox is software-based, so you have to install a dedicated software for Sandbox. So obviously, you have a bit more prowess going that route, but for mass appeal, usually people are going to go for browser-based because you don't have to install anything, you just click and go. So depending, it's all consideration. So even though you might say, okay, the fidelity is not good, but again, how good is your internet connection and how good is your graphic computing power? If you have a better hardware, maybe, I don't know, 6-7 Gs, and then you can get close to video, high fidelity AAA video game. Yeah. In Sandbox, they said that you can, be any of this role. You can be a creator, designing games, designing houses, designing clothes, fashion, etc. Or you can just be a gamer, just play around, collect things, or manage community, manage guild, and basically go around, discover. So in Sandbox, it's fairly vertical. You can see because the 96 is quite big, and they're given quite a substantial volume. So if you look at the experience in Sandbox, it's fairly quite vertical compared to Decentraland. But there's a lot of other metaverse careers that might be beneficial to your architectural subset or subset of skill. Of course, digital 3D artists, you also can manage projects. There's a lot of a need. Community managers, especially social media managers, if you're good in branding your projects or your digital development, digital line developers, and all this all educators, event organizers, etc. So there's a lot of. I'm sure you have read this through in and out. Digital land could be sold for millions in Decentraland, for example, in Sandbox as well. And then basically there's a lot of pioneers, a lot of artists that actually do their exclusive metaverse-only concert. Again, to this young audience, like, in their teens, they might not know these artists. For example, Ariana Grande, for the 30s and or maybe late 20s. But for the teens, the 16 and 15 needs a reintroduction of this. Maybe the artists want to reinvent themselves and bring themselves into metaverse. Snoop Dogg has came in and acquire a piece of land, not a piece, multiple that has been amalgamated in Sandbox, and then basically they are selling the neighboring lands to any potential. But again, in metaverse, you have to understand when you are side by side, okay, with a landmark or a popular content, not necessarily you can just walk through the content. The content might be, for example, you want to walk into Snoop Dogg's land, it might be blocked, or there might be a paywall, pay gate. So it's not as you know, in a certain extent, it's similar to real life. I mean, you can't just walk to any building that you want. You must, you know, see if the building is for public consumption or etc. So it's similar to Metaverse. Of course, a lot of other brands and people coming in. So basically, you can see that they try to create at least traction or presence, and then a lot of artists, 3D artists that actually build architectural representation. So if we don't jump on the bandwagon per se, again, their perception of what space is going to take the status quo. For example, if you play any games, you will see that especially doors are slightly larger than normal because of the bounding box of a character. A character will have a bounding box, right? So if the door is like 900 per se, they sometimes stumble upon or they can't go through the door. So if this continue and the 3D artists or the gaming industry per se, proportion, logics take, take precedent over actual architecture. One day, the preference of people that wants to build physical building will follow that. So that is also a thing. I understand the proportion, the scale might not be right to the human, because the human avatar are also not economically, you know, humanoid. But again, it's all about perception of how build works is, or spatial orientation is. So even though you might not feel the brunt of it, but in the future, of course, right now you have this requirement of Instagrammable spot in your architecture, in your building. Where does it come from? From the digital social media lah. And then in the future, you're gonna get more ridiculous, not ridiculous lah, but more specific or more sophisticated requests by your client for your physical building, and you are wondering where all this requirement come from. It could be coming from Metaverse. So if we don't come in, then they are, you know, 3D artists are gonna take a front row lah. Of course, more artists came in, and that creates traffic. Literally, Metaverse is like a website as well. So if you create traffic, you create good content, people will come in, log in, and try to spend money, buy real estate nearby this popular. So we're going to show you some of the local example. I think this is a fairly important piece, even though it's already a year old, only a year old, which is not so bad. The first NFT gallery. And then basically have a good, a lot of coverage talking about how can we use Metaverse as NFT galleries. I think this is a start, and this is a fairly new grounds. That's why I said there's an opportunity for architects to actually come in. This is by architect Salman. So it's good to see that an architect actually designed these spaces, that include gallery, digital mama, etc. And this is some of the projects that we did for NFT project by Qhawarizmi. It's a very popular project on Petas.io, one of the 5 or one of the 4 blue chip local project. So we did. Maybe we can go into this Metaverse after this. It's a bit pixelated, but there's some traction online, meaning this is a place where they can go and discuss and then meet other members. We also did an NFT project for Sanuri. Hand-drawn artist that actually minted his work on BSC, Binance Smart Contract, Smart Chain blockchain, and then basically we designed sort of like a palace to suit his kind of vernacular architecture artwork. Again, fairly pixelated. We can also go in, or maybe you can. I will just give you a link later on. This is our own QWA. Qhawarizmi Architects HQ, Metaverse HQ per se, because I'm sure Zoom have 40-minute limits, and for some reason I like to micromanage. Because I have a micro team, so everyone is like 20% of the office, 20% of the office, so I need to make sure they don't make mistakes. So I tend to talk more than 40 minutes to give instruction, daily instruction. So instead of Zoom, of the 40-minute Zoom, we hop on the Metaverse for a free, unlimitless time. So this is some of our going to be our portfolio as well. Actually, we bring clients. we don't give PDF anymore. I mean, of course, we have a version of PDF for what I call it, procurement, etc., all those documentation. But if you want to talk about our CV, we rather walk them through, and then obviously not so opulently designed space, but enough to show who we are and what kind of spatial competency that we have. Of course, there is a number of very limited projects around. Yeah. This is the meeting room. Yeah, no one there. I mean, usually we are voice. As I mentioned, proximity. So whoever gets scolded can run away and go to the other side of the metaverse. This is again Rumah Tangsi used to be Pam's house. It used to house this Pam. Used to house Pam, which is now has been converted into event space. And I think Rumah Tangsi is one of the first metaverse that actually held events. Both in digital and physical, like digital environment lah. Meaning they have this event, for example, Kuala Lumpur Fashion Weekend in physical form, and they have another version of it. Okay, this is Architect Radar with the organizer. You can see that basically looking through Oculus, and basically the house becomes sort of like an archive of all the. If you've been there, and then you might miss some of the clothing or the presented or model, you can just come back and then see the whole catalog of it. And yeah, it could be as art gallery. Basically, it's becoming a digital space metaverse. It's sort of like a added value to the actual event space. And of course, it's not limited to those Oculus glasses. Actually, you can experience it even on your computer or PC. Because again, those gadgets needs good internet connectivity, and of course the what do you call it? You could felt dizziness if you're not familiar with it. So there's a way of managing the pace of how it shows, because the feedback is fairly unnatural. It's fairly close to you. So some of the gadgets, virtual reality, meaning you are totally inside. This is just the way that you can experience them lah. So there's a pro and cons to it. Augmented, you have partial, actual thing. I think the most popular games is Pokemon Go, which is good as an introduction and a proof of concept. It could be applied almost anywhere. A geolocation specific AR game, but of course this has no blockchain technology integrated into it, because they are not created for Web3, and of course other arrays of, I think there's a lot of cheaply made headgear that you can put your phone, and then you can experience things. So there's a lot of argument. It depends actually on the material that you want to show. If you are thinking about details, maybe you want to have a better control. In VR, and AR is more like, if you want to impose with real life. For example, you have bought an IKEA chair, and then you just want to see how the chair goes into your living room, and you can have that. So all this application, again, depending on the software, the hardware. So in the future, when your phone gets better computing, graphical and computing unit, they can get as real as possible with the lights casted on it. So let's say you have a photo, or maybe your house, and then there's a sliding door and the light casted on it, and then you put a chair. Of course, you're gonna look very cartoony, because the chair doesn't cast any shadow or whatnot. But once your computer has that ray tracing ability, when you put an IKEA chair there to visualize, and then you suddenly see. So you can start shopping in your home, and then get those lists, and then just pick up from IKEA shelf, or maybe get them delivered. Okay, mixed reality is sort of AR, but in a different interface. So you can see that they are wearing smart glasses as an interfacing unit. But of course, as your graphical get better, your glasses will get smaller. Now it's fairly bulky, because they need to accommodate all those circuitry inside the hardware. So the user can interact using multiple gestures, and of course, again, this is also currently developed with gaming technologies. I think if you look at all those PlayStation, and I can't remember what it is, but you can, or Nintendo, what do you call it? home console. You can play tennis on it, with golf. So there's a lot of inputs, and I think you're only gonna get better with understanding of all these technologies. So it's all about making the technology mature and more cheaply available, and basically in order to trace your feedback is unlimited. And now it looks very archaic, but it will get as seamless as you pitching your smartphone. Right now might be feel very natural to you, but if you go back a few years back, that might not be the thing. So yeah, we're gonna go to one of the change to maybe we go to QWA's Meta Office first because it's fairly simple. Then we go to maybe I can go there. Navigate myself. Obviously, it's error. Oh. So this is a freeware. So you want to do this yourself? Yeah. So let's say our team member come in. So basically, this is a test. Usually, client didn't even pass the spawn because they can't find anything to navigate themselves. But again, this is gamification lah. Basically, they have to explore a bit, and then they're gonna be rewarded with experience lah. Hopefully, it's a bit dark on the screen, but actually we have like a plan of our Meta officers, and basically this is supposed to be a portrait of members of the office. But again, I don't want to make it look like a funeral house. So I thinking how should I put the photo, maybe avatar or something. And then this is our some of our certificates and whatnot. It's just there, and there is certain philosophical some things lah. But of course, this have to come with verbal explanation. This is our portfolio portion. We don't post many projects because in QWA is my strategic design consultancy. I have practical architects for bread and butter submission project, real commission project. So in this particular project, in this particular practice, we do speculative work and R&D and whatnot. So all of them are renderings for now, and then basically we try to somehow divided the other two rooms. For example, this one will be our Metaverse portfolios. Obviously, I didn't update them much. So there's only 3 now. And you can go to the photos to link up to those metaverses. If you look at the 3 metaverse that include this building, PAM building as well, that we donated during the Qhawarizmi opening. This is my small collection of NFTs. I don't actively trade NFT. Again, it's just a small, hopefully we can fill up the gallery soon. So in the office, we have 10 to 15% workload on metaverses, and our reserve, I think 10 to 50% also on crypto. So not everything on fiat lah. So this is the meeting room that I mentioned. Of course, it's fairly modest and small. Okay, so we go to the Sakaverse and then we end this. I think it's already 12. Because I didn't use my own computer. So this is, we have a tab on Metaverse. So we're gonna go into Sakaverse just to show you what we did for a very good NFT project. So basically this is their clubhouse. Obviously we have a directory but you know, people would just go straight ahead. It is inspired by the artwork of Qhawarizmi, which is a set of skulls, and when you go in, you can see a set of artworks that is actually produced by them. So if you, let's say, you know, it also works as an open gallery. If you, let's say, interested to buying this, it will connect you to a marketplace. In this particular case, because it's on BNB, so it's going to be on what do you call it? So of course, if you tired of walking, you can fly. Of course, that's the benefits of being in the metaverse, and of course, there's a lot more artworks in this 3-story what do you call it? Metaverses. So basically, what we're trying to do is, if you're thinking this is sort of like a normal art gallery, you can get royalty for, you know, if they buy through these links, maybe you can get royalty from the artist, for example. But in our, you know, commercial dealing with Qhawarizmi is not like that lah. Just saying that the potential. This is when you go into our photo spot, you can go up and then basically see the whole Sakaverse island per se. Okay, that is all. Thank you so much. Let's go to the Q&A session.
Testing. Okay, thank you, Architect Kawa. Can you please have another round of applause? So next year, can we have a Raya open house in your office?
Yeah, sure. Next year.
Diundang, you know?
I will put more
material.
material.
And then Raya and all that in your office will be quite nice, I think. Huh? First time in the Metaverse, a Raya celebration. Next year, Kawa's office.
So my office are fairly
I mean,
small.
that office lah, the one you showed lah, that office, not the actual physical office.
We can accommodate up to 25 people lah.
Boleh lah. Boleh ya, Raya next year. Oh, you all heard it, huh? Okay, let's open up to the Q&A session. There's so many interesting things today. So if you're interested, please raise your hand and a mic will be given to you. Please introduce yourself. And of course, our esteemed speaker will answer any question that you may have. Who would like to get the ball rolling? Who would like to start walking in the Metaverse today? Take your first steps into the Metaverse. Anyone? Okay, we've got one gentleman over the back there. Can someone please hand him the mic? I think you have the mic. The mic. Oh, there it is.
Hello. Hi, good morning. First of all, thank you very much for your very interesting and enlightening talk. I've been following some of your projects before. Very inspiring. Yeah, Jay, I agree with you that architects, overall, we are quite slow to pick up with the fast-moving pace of what's going on in the industry. BIM is like a part of our culture. So unfortunately, I've got a lot of questions, but unfortunately, I can't ask them all. So I've got like basically 2 themes that address you, general themes. The first one will be, I've noticed like metaverses, just like social media, I see them grouped into 2 types. One is they have a connection to the real physical world lah, macam rumah tangsi, you know, with like ideas of real space. And the other option, the other world is like we have no disconnection, we're completely disconnected from the real world. It's almost like a mimpi lah, you know, where you know, the ideas of like up, not even up and down, that doesn't exist. You know, it's I don't know whether there's other metaverses have gone that far lah. The second theme I'd like to ask you, because of we are now addressing a lot of what's going on now lah with digital media metaverses. But how do you see like the social impact, the pros and cons are? I mean, the cons, like for example, when the internet first started, it was supposed to be like a democratic space, right? And now it's become like a purely commercialized space controlled by Google. And like Facebook was supposed to be like a sharing space. And now it's become a place where they actually control your emotions. They can decide you're feeling bad or you're going to buy this thing. And we can't do anything about it lah, because it's been monopolized. Same like Amazon. Amazon has already control. So, I mean, there's obviously the worst case scenario is like in Japan, they got otaku people, you know, who don't go out. I mean, I'm talking about cons. So I think it's just like maybe at the same time as we are embracing it, we should also anticipate future problems. That's all the two things. Thank you very much.
So for the Rumah Tangsi, maybe Architect Reda is here, is the custodian of the Rumah Tangsi. So maybe you can answer that one first, Reda? Your comment?
I was just about to invite Architect Rida to come onto the stage to do a moderation session. So I think you can answer that question and start the moderation session. Everyone, please give both our gentlemen a round of applause, Architect Rida and Architect Qhawa.
Rumah Tangsi as a
Oh yeah.
Custodian
versus fiction.
Fiction versus the IRL, they call it in real life. So like you rightly said, there's two types of metaverse now, which is the fictional and versus the in real life. And also the technology is moving very fast, all because of the pandemic. So why this happened is because there's two generation gap now. The senior and the very, very young. And like Qhawa just now show the Roblox and Minecraft generation. So like me and Qhawa, a lot of people actually ask us to do a project using Minecraft, a voxel, but we are not from that generation. So the manpower is from below. But to understand this more is actually you have to understand the different type of metaverse that's happening. And the value is very, very different. Like what's happening now, if you look at Facebook, it's mostly was Web 2, was social media, and then now it's already going to analytics, digital analytics through Google Analytics and everything. So what's coming now is Web 3, which is introduction of blockchain, which Qhawa said it was value chain. Right. So the next 10 years to 20 years time is coming, which is the blockchain analytics. That's where all the data is already there. But what is interesting now is the architects, is that it's not rocket science now. All these are made by Blender and SketchUp. Simple architectural models. But what's happening now is within 5 years to 10 years, when 5G is coming, even we were talking to Magic and also a few companies, they are saying 5G is coming. That what does that allow? That allows a lot of things. That allows the model to come into Metaverse. And what does that say? All architects will be able to go into Metaverse and make money in Metaverse. That's crazy, right? It's crazy. Right now, what's happening with BIM? All architects are buying the software and finishing up your money in the office to accommodate the services. You are losing money, right? But what if those models are brought into Metaverse and it's valued? So there's two movements now. One is the 3D fictional, which is one is public where they want to do gallery, and like you know, Seoul Metropolitan currently they are doing their analytics metaverse for the city, and also merging with the social metaverse. Both, oh, that's crazy because they are spending $1 billion to make it. So last 3 months, I think Makassar in Indonesia announced it, Makaverse. That's another thing. Last month, Jakarta also announced. We were approached by Bukit Bintang to do it. We asked, do we Malaysian have money because election is coming? It doesn't make sense, right, to waste money on this. But you can do other things like tourism, metaverse, and other things. And these are also, so there's two things, the two ways of architects can look at it. One is actually analytics. So what you have already, which already with BIM, what's that called? With BIM, you can do simulations, all those things. You can service the government for that kind of metaverse. The other one is social metaverse for public. There's a lot of people are looking for the service now. Trust me, like Qhawa just now said, some of the consultants already have 40 projects, but they don't have people to do it. Architects.
I think it depends on the case use lah. Basically, real businesses, they have. I mean, of course, if they do a fictional, let's say fictional McDonald's, it could not be McDonald's. Is not a good. Let's say a pa and ma shop lah. A very specific. It must have that outlet silhouette or at least facade. So that's where Rumah Tangsi kind of came in. But more entertainment, leisure, not so related, not so heavily related to real life businesses, could have those fictional cities. And then the second part, obviously we try to make it as decentralized as possible. That's why people on the decentralized world are fairly sensitive. If the project are fairly centralized, they will vote with their money. Like, they will not invest in a certain project. They will know that there will be a lot of company or developers intervention. But again, the scale or the people that is actually are working or in the sphere are very small, and the mass market, 99% haven't hit the market, and obviously they will rely on brand names like Microsoft, Facebook, etc. to go there. But again, the idea of having you have to relate to DAO at the end of the day. DAO is where you can have not full, but partial ownership, collective ownership of a project. So let's say the central land just now, the land parcel are 10 by 10 meter. But when the group came together and collect vote, and they voted to make the land bigger, 16 by 16, then somehow that is the new dimension of each parcel. So,
I think they don't understand about DAO, right? I can make it as simple as possible. What's DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization, is actually management corporation in apartments. MC. So that's what's happening in the digital world. Every project have an JMB and MC. So everyone that buys into the project get share into the projects. Just like you own an apartment, you get common property. Exactly like that. So what's happening now in the DAO movement is that they don't have constitution regulated under the government. Like MC and JMB, we have, sets of rules. So that's what's lacking in DAO, and that's why DAO is not actually moving into the digital world probably. But it will come in.
Slowly there will be standard protocols lah. And then protocols tu macam clauses lah. You can take in, take out, whatever clause you want. So yeah, it's fairly new. As a show, it's only 1 year old thing. So
I like what you said just now. Like Malaysians selalu a little bit slow, kan? Honestly, on ground, Malaysia is not too slow at all. On ground, very fast. Just that the corporates not picking up the local, the people on ground. We have like a lot of like Pentas, the platform, Pangolin, and then a lot of NFT platforms that's very fast now. Even Indonesia is coming in. CoinGecko, the biggest place for analytics for crypto in the world. They are from Malaysia. They are locals from Penang. We have Imbas.io and Summerwatch. They are apps that connect NFT to the restaurants and all the digital retails. We have a lot of things happening on the ground. Just that corporate ignore them. So I was like in this is very important. 2 days ago, I was at Radar punya digital marketing punya event. The developers are already talking about digital marketing. Used to be from social media, but now they want to move into Metaverse and NFT. What does that say? That says a lot that our clients are going into that. What does it mean? We are designing the buildings. At the same time, later on, we will have to design their marketing 3D punya preparation and for the marketing department. You will have to prepare 2 sets later on. 3D for the building project, concept design up to the construction. 3D probably to give to their team to actually do the Metaverse for their marketing. Wow. These are all coming services. Now we have like architects project, say class 1, class 2, class 3. In Metaverse, the class is different. It's different, When they do a commercial housing, a commercial project, it's class 1 because you have to integrate with other things like commercial, e-commerce, everything. That's complexity. So those are things that's coming in the future.
On the other, because the question quite loaded, actually there's a lot of aspects. And he also did mention about kotakus, people that don't socialize out and just be in the Metaverse program. Not Metaverse specifically, but manga and all this Japanese culture. But yes, to a certain extent, it only going to, induce who you really are. If you are really, extrovert, you're going to reach to a lot of people. But if you are really, all about yourself, you're going to go in deeper, sink deeper. So it's actually, this technology is an enabler. Again, the decision is on your hand, how you use it. It's a double-edged sword. But at the same time, this is what I told people when I got asked this question. Unless you are engaging your parents using WhatsApp, you should not be worried. Because your core family will be the same. What will differ is that the intimacy of your circle will get larger because you're engaging more people in the Metaverse, but the relationship might be slightly, not slightly lah, obviously diluted because you're going to only interact in Metaverse. So in the olden days, the pre-online world, you have your nucleus and you have your family, friends, or a circle of friends, very, very intimate as well. So maybe let's say it's quite dark, any gradient of color. But now, Metaverse is just expanding the band and then diluting the color, diluting the quality of the relationship. That's all. But it should look like the cost still the same, and only the peripheral, the donuts get wider. That's all lah. At least I would like to think it that way.
Also, Metaverse, not to mention, is borderless. So during the pandemic, a lot of the creators, because a lot of them have relationship outside of the country. Some live in Asia, some live in Europe, so they can go into the Metaverse, bring in Netflix watch together, holding hand using avatar. That's what's happening. That's so the younger kids and youth, they are accepting it.
It's so sad, lah. You can't get a real girlfriend or boyfriend. You have to get an avatar.
That's why stay in your main core.
You know,
your spouse, your
I
kids.
want to hold a, you know,
once you go engaging people outside this big diluted donut, that's what you get lah.
I want to hold a lady's hand lah. I don't want my avatar to hold it lah.
After the border are open, they fly and see the girlfriend.
My first plan. Straight to speed.
It's better holding hand as avatar rather than holding hand in Zoom. You touch the screen, right, without doing anything, right?
Pros and cons. Okay, thank you. We've got a very lively discussion going on. Can I have more questions from the audience?
Any more questions?
We have about 10 minutes before we wrap up. Of course, our gentlemen will be here even after 12:30, so you can discuss with them if you like, depending on their discretion. Can we have maybe a question from the top, if anybody's interested? Okay. I mean, you know. Oh, there's one question here? Okay. Eddie.
Good afternoon. I'm Afi, also passionate about the Metaverse. I have two simple questions. A lot of lecturers or students come to me. They tell me that venturing into the Metaverse is a 3D modeling exercise, especially on the student level. So, what are your thoughts on that? And secondly, could you just touch a bit on the environmental implications of using the blockchain and whatnot? Because you mentioned earlier that you use graphic cards, the RTX 3090. That card alone outputs about 200 watts of power. So if you want to mine, blockchain or something, there's going to be a lot of electricity used. So those are the two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a fear that that I have at least, because I don't take because I have a very small office. My fear is when architecture has been seen as a labor intensive work, and you are not going to be appreciated for your ideas. So as the lecturer put it, it is a 3D modeling exercise. Yes, if you think yourself as a laborer, like to get this 3D digital world works. But at the same time, if you think about what can we do inside the Metaverse, of course the architecture will induce certain behavioral, psychological aspect of the user. So again, if you take it as a 3D modeling exercise, yes, you can, but that is the lowest entry point for architects. Hopefully you will, not hopefully definitely you have to graduate yourself from that into planning the whole Metaverse. Okay, planning a Metaverse is just like planning a website. If you don't have a content, let's say your website is just one page and then you don't have anything, there's no content But if you look at the Meta offices, just an example just now, my office is blank, and the clientele that I want is clientele that wants to work, meaning to work to find a way. Okay, that's my first filter. There's a lot of clients that actually don't even pass the circle pond, and I'm fine with them saying, oh, ini je ke portfolio dia? Yeah, itu je lah. It's okay if you just find that. But to whom that venture a bit more adventurous, so it becoming a filter already for my practice, even though I don't know they are good paymaster or not, it's secondary lah kan. Tapi maksudnya they are willing to explore with me, hopefully, and then they go through, and then basically if you look at it carefully, it's actually just like a website. I have a portfolio part, the NFT part. If you imagine that in a 2D website, it's similar. It's the tab. What is the content you want to do? So hopefully, not knowing who is the educator or the institution involved, but hopefully they will change their mindset a bit lah. So instead of become a laborer, they think as a programmatic
I would like to
curator.
add a little bit lah. Okay, the way that architecture is educated in foreign and Asia is different. Like our syllabus of education is very oriented to the government, which is lembaga punya requirement MQA, right? But if you study overseas, it's very thematics. Studios are based on thematics ideas. And Metaverse is not a new thing. There's already studios doing this in 2000. In Australia, in UK, in Europe. They will already have studios studying on cyberspace architecture, where architecture will learn to immerse using basic software. At that time, Flash, videos, all those things. But we don't have all this. At the time, Friendster pun tak ada. Right? So we do visualization through videos, animations, and also image. That's proven in the London Olympics. Because the designer of the animations in London Olympics, Batman, the movie, is architect. They are architects that already transform themselves into animators and designers for cyberspace design. So it's already there. Now it's just that all the softwares are all the technology is here already currently now, dah ready, except for yang tinggal 5G and artificial intelligence integration within the system. Once that two ada, wow, we can meet anyone, touch anything inside the cyberspace. But it will not take over our real life. But at the end of the day, we still need human touch. So, macam Afi cakap tu, that one could be elective in the university. Because our student needs to actually learn innovations rather than just learn the traditional architecture of just brick and mortar doing building. Because this is the demand of the world now. So you can have this and put this forward to the university.
Sustainability.
Benda dah lama. You know, I will tell you a story lah. Back in 2000, NASA came to my university TU Vienna, Austria. NASA came to teach on how to design spaceship in the moon. In the moon. That was the year 2022. Now, currently 5 years ago, all my classmates are working with NASA. They are actually designing spaceship in US. This doesn't make sense, right? But that was 20 years ago. And then now some of my friends are already before in the cyber the design. They are all in companies that are doing this. So things are moving very fast. And if you don't follow, we as architects, we can predict already the future.
It's a very exciting future. I mean, let's face it. It's a very exciting future. We're so lucky that we're at the precipice, the beginning of all this kind of thing.
All the beginning.
We're so lucky, actually.
Sustainability of a chain correlate to the chain behavior. Archaic, a dinosaur chain like Bitcoin or Ethereum that use proof of work will require proof of work is like macam I cakap tadi lah, fighting for tenders, fighting who can resolve the algorithm first. So meaning more terminal answering the same question, competing, and whoever get first gonna get reward. Proof of stake, they will assign the task to you, to your terminal, so you don't fight, and then there's no overlapping compute power. So, but I've been reading there is a better solution, more lenient solution than proof of stake. So when we get to proof of stake, it's already good enough, and to the point where we are incomparable to centralized data center like your Maybank's IMB data center. They're also consuming powers. You bear in mind, your Maybank to you is not file and papers and in a story somewhere. They also, every time you use Maybank to you or whatever ATM terminal, check deposit terminal, all that consume powers. So if you want to compare, yeah, it must be a comparative study, but I haven't seen a fully total comparison of the consumption of banking industry, meaning controlling fiat currency versus cryptocurrency total consumption. It's just that the apparent consumption of cryptocurrency looks very, what do you call it, macam homemade, because they use a lot of graphic card, because they don't have a solution, industrial scale solution. So they use consumer grade graphic card to array that looks like like a patchy work, but actually is the clean and slick data centers of major banks are also consuming a lot of power. So yeah.
For sustainability, I don't understand this question because everyone's been picking up on energy. They never pick up on the social part and economical part, where actually the community and the people actually make money, and then the engagement between the community is more while doing this kind of technology of blockchain, NFT, cryptocurrency. So people start to collaborate. Before this, it's very hard to have multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary collaboration to create innovations. Everyone tend to be keeping themselves blockchain or exposes this. Okay. But what the heck, energy? 250 years mining. Baru 8 years, 10 years mining versus 250 to get electricity for innovation. That's a brain, you know. You do mining for 250 years just to get electricity, but you do 10 years of innovation to get a little bit of non-sustainability to get better innovations. So you have to wait on the consequences.
It's hard to compare apple to apple because a lot of countries, like Ecuador, I think they have adopted Ecuador. Salvador has adopted cryptocurrency as a legal tender.
Bitcoin.
In order to somehow establish a bank, a system, an online system, because you have to understand it also serves underprivileged countries that most of the people on the planet doesn't have account, checking account or saving account. So actually, crypto e-wallet is actually a way for you to have secured account per se to your name without having those hefty banking infrastructure behind. So again, it has to be compared apple to apple and I haven't seen a conclusive summary of those.
A lot of like you said just now, the underprivileged countries banyak adoption because they want to be exposed to things that they've never gotten exposed to, especially new businesses, new innovations.
Sounds fair.
Any more question?
Okay, well, it's almost 12:30, so maybe we just, sorry, it's 12:35, so maybe just one more question and then we wrap up the session. Is that okay? Unless, of course, you want to continue, that's up to you guys. We just have one more question and then we'll decide. Oh, from top. Kenapa tak ada orang kat atas sana tu? Tak nak tanya, kenapa semua segan sana? Just one person.
One question.
Oh, one more person from the, okay, this gentleman on the left. On my left, I mean. Right towards the end. The one with the beigeish, pinkish sweater, is it? Okay, please introduce yourself.
Hello, Chong. So, for design, what advantages you find as an architect compared to 3D artists? Because if in Metaverse, you don't have any structure constraint or authorities requirement. So, what is the advantages?
That is the advantage.
It depends on what platform you are in. Obviously, if you are in the voxelated environment, you might not have that much advantage. Okay. But for scale-sensitive environment, for example, your clientele is a BMW. So the car has to be proportional. So now, if your car is like this size and your door is this size, when they go to your digital showroom, they're going to like, is this car small or that the door is big? So architects have the sensitivity of scale. Because if you go into all this gaming engine and gaming modeling software, they are not so much dimension sensitive. It's all by eye. Like macam kena, macam boleh, macam yes, that kind of thing. But in the future, we see that demands from especially real life businesses because they don't want to misconstrue their potential customer, scale will be important. But for now, because of we want mass adoption, so they're gonna do a very easy, scaleless world. Buat je lah what I want to do kan. But in the future, it will be more inclined to our skill set, but we must be ready to take the opportunity.
So that's one of the benefits of being architect. Architect is the master of scale. The second part is architecture is master of space planning. They all don't know how to do space planning. I remember one of the 3D companies doing the gallery. They go into the circulation of the building, but dead end. By the time came down, they already dead end. They cannot go back up. So as an architect, like just now, Qhawar showed this one. This one is a lot of thought in terms of doing the space planning. Like you're designing a house exactly like this house. Why did we do this? The batu here, so that when people submerge into the metaverse, they are already here. As they go along, they go to the lobby. At the left side of the lobby, there's a panel that connects to data information about the website of this owner, Saka Confederacy. And as you go along, you see why Qhawarizmi designed the table there. It's because the members wanted to have meeting there and the team and all the artwork. And future expansion, on the left, there's a door there to connect to their e-commerce platform, Web2. So if you are actually well-versed in this kind of spatial requirements within the metaverse, you can actually start to plan spaces inside the 3D world. Banyak lagi benda boleh buat. Future ada boleh masuk dalam gallery. You can go into the gallery. You can go into what else? I don't know, some of our clients asked to do casino. But we haven't taken it yet lah. So, masjid pun ada. Masjid pun ada request to do combine metaverse with VR metaverse.
So virtual
for haji simulation.
For haji simulation, for yearly punya simulation for
korban
bazar Ramadan. Kubur pun ada suruh kita buat.
So going to a virtual mosque or a virtual solat, is it? A virtual prayer session.
Foreigners, okay. Like Malaysia, our mazhab don't allow for distance prayers, kan? But in the East, you can actually semayang tarawih by looking at the Mecca on TV. You can follow, but it's not within our mazhab lah. So, but other people can accept. We can accept. So it depends on the client how they want to do it.
It could be used for vice. It could be used for religious ni lah. So choose your ni lah, your own thing.
Choose your poison lah. Choose your poison.
Like vice or religion. Like the graveyard. Why they want metaverse for graveyard?
My God.
Because
Feng shui.
It's a digital archive of your family. You go to the kubur, you cannot see any picture. You go to the metaverse, you can see all the video of your family. Remembrance. You can go and
love
talk.
letters.
Love letters.
Voicemail.
Voice.
I mean,
Everyone. I miss my grandmother. Masuk dalam tu. Dengar. Oh, the voice of my grandmother.
Dying once is not enough. You have to die twice apparently now.
So these are things that you cannot brain, but people starting to appreciate.
Okay. I think on that note, because it's just too much to process anyway. Virtual prayer sessions, virtual funeral sessions. God knows what's next. Should we end it here? Unless, of course, you gentlemen want to continue. Shall we end it? Okay, well, let's take a moment, of course, to give the speakers a round of applause. And once again, just a couple. Okay, thank you. So, round of applause to Pam. I certainly am looking forward to Datum this year. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you guys soon again. Take care and stay safe.